Hi guys, welcome to OCD Real Talk after like ages. Like it's been a while. We've been busy with so many other things. We never coordinated amongst each other to do a real talk, but like we're here and we want to like start doing them more, I think, again. So I think I really wanted to have a discussion about relationship OCD with Gemma because I think it's something you and I both have experienced,
Yeah.
and and relationship OCD I feel like is just also one of those themes that is extremely vast because
Hmm.
the kinds of fears that come with relationships are just like innumerable in a way, right? There's obviously attraction related stuff, there's fear of losing connection stuff, there's fear of cheating, there's fear of being cheated on, there's fear of your partner dying, there's
Hmm.
there's a lot of different things. Fear of rejection, classically, what if they don't like me or something like that. So retroactive jealousy, that's a big one. So I think the if we start going into the branches of relationship OCD, like it can easily be like a 2 hour real talk, I think. A 3, 4 hour real talk just going into all of that stuff. But what would you say like, and I also go into some of my stuff as well, but like what were some of your main relationship OCD fears?
So I would definitely say cheating OCD
Mm,
severely, to the point where even if I had like a thought about someone being attractive, I would have to confess it because I felt like if I didn't, then I was hiding something. And then if
mm.
he found out I was hiding something, he would leave me. Um,
And would you do it and would you confess in like a joking way, like, haha, by the way, that person is attractive, or would it be like something seriously
Yeah,
you
it
think
it
about?
would be so it would start in a joking way
Yeah,
because I would want that just like him to say, "Oh, that's normal. I sometimes do that." But if he did, I would get very jealous. So,
yeah,
I thought I wanted him to do that and said he did, and then I would be jealous. But then it would go into if I'd done it in a jokey way and got that reassurance, of course, as we know, reassurance makes the fear morph. So I would get a little bit of reassurance, and then I would go, I shouldn't have joked about it. I didn't tell him like quite how serious this actually
yeah,
was. He doesn't understand what I mean. So then I would go, no, I actually think he was really attracted, and like I think that's a big part. Like I think, and then it would obviously cause issues in the relationship because anyone that doesn't have OCD isn't going to understand it. Like they can sympathize with us, but they can't understand it
right.
properly. So, understandably, if you have someone coming to you constantly saying, "Oh, I find someone else attractive," or "Oh, I think like I had a thought that I'd rather be with this person,"
No one will like
understandably, they're
it.
going to be very upset by that.
They will be. And this is, I
Yeah.
really have to highlight this to people on phone calls as well, because they're obviously they're confessing and all of that in the name of honesty and open communication and everything. But
Mm,
like I and this is not to scare people, but I do have to highlight that confessing and reassurance seeking can actually lead to problems in your relationship. You're actually going to
mm,
push people away. There's going to be conflicts, there's going to be friction. Because as much as they might even know that, okay, and they have compassion for you having OCD, they will still not necessarily understand it like obviously we do because
mm,
we're experiencing in a different way. They're not able to see that, okay, these are what these thoughts mean and how they're appearing. So it's going
mm.
to cause problems for sure.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely did with our relationship. It went on for about we were together for 4 years, and I would say for at least three of those, I was suffering with like really intense ROCD. So it was like the cheating OCD. I also had fears of like loss of control and like hurting him in my sleep or something like that. So
Hmm.
that like then went into a bit of a harm OCD thing with him. It was all just fear of losing the relationship. I was just so
Yeah.
fearful of losing the relationship that it manifested in so many different ways. Also him leaving me leaving him. I would constantly think, oh, maybe I'm not attracted to him and I'm going to break up with him. And yeah, it was a very stressful time. And
Yeah.
eventually that is why we broke up because I was so jealous and constantly telling him things that I had been thinking and it was just too stressful. And I completely understand that. Like I'm genuinely surprised he lasted as long as he did in that relationship. I was about 19 at the time. And the pressure must have been massive.
Hmm.
Um, and I definitely look at that now and think like that was I don't know if I would deal with someone for that long. that was behaving in the way that I was behaving.
Yeah. Honestly, like I mean, I really respect people sometimes for staying
Mm,
with an OCD sufferer because I
yeah.
mean, because staying with an OCD sufferer is no easy task because they can become moody, they can really lash out sometimes, they can become distant,
Hmm.
they can become overly clingy. They can also just completely put sex off the table as well for months and months, you know, and the other person is just like sitting there patiently being like, well, okay. So and I mean it's tough. It's not easy at all. I think for me, like, it was because I haven't had many romantic relationships in my life, so it was like, well, I don't know. I've had like a lot of situationships, let's put it that way.
Hmm. Yeah.
So no like formal romantic relationship. Like I mean, I had a couple here and there, but like nothing that way. But other than that, like it was massively around friendships as well,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I think I've had all thought like I had it with my family as well, like in just in terms of
Hmm.
like upsetting my family, or what if my family gets angry at me, and what if they yell at
Yeah.
me or criticize me and things like that. But then it was with friendships because like my friendships, especially my school friendships, have just been like absolutely like the core of my life kind of thing. And like I loved going to school because all my friends would be there, and I'm still friends with like all my childhood friends from school, and you know, all that kind of stuff,
Oh,
like
that's really
pre
nice.
O levels. And we've been friends for like, I don't know, 15 plus years now at this point. So it's been like really amazing. But like so I would be very upset about losing those friendships because in my mind it would be like just like that core foundation of my life that I thought if I lose
Hmm.
this, then I don't know who I am, or I don't know how I will be
Yeah.
happy kind of thing. And one thing that you also said in your last relationship OCD video, which guys will be up today, by the way, like when I was watching it, like one thing that really resonated with me was where you said like something along the lines of like anything that in any relationship that you are making so like definitional to your happiness
Hmm.
is not
Yeah.
good. And that is exactly how it is because in your mind, and that's the kind of like obsession that can also then go into limerence as well, which you go into in that
Yeah.
video as well. That obsession with the other person, which is like,
Hmm.
I cannot fathom a future where this person is not in my life. That's
Yeah.
how it is. And I've experienced
Yeah.
it myself as well. I've experienced that level of obsession. Like even if I was just sitting at home by myself, watching a TV show, I would be thinking, oh, is this a kind of TV show that they would also like? Am I
Yeah.
watching
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
that they like or not? And it
Hmm.
was just like their presence becomes constantly in your mind because of this
Yeah.
belief that I can't imagine
Yeah.
life without them.
And you kind of like try and like change your likes and dislikes to kind of fit there so that they like they like you more. Like when you just said about the TV show, I thought I remember doing things like that, thinking are they watching it? And then I would like be like, should I text them and ask them if they like it or not? Because if they do, great, because you know they'll think, oh, we like the same stuff. But if they don't, I would have been so disappointed. I'd be like, why did I say anything? And now like they think that we're not a good like confident, we're not a good
Yeah,
match, and
yeah.
oh,
And
it's
and
crazy.
if we have like if we have like very opposite likes, then there will be some kind of gap or distance between us, or lack of
Yeah, yeah,
compatibility and connection, and
yeah.
like we need to I need to keep that like, you know, just like really tight and secure. So like it just becomes this like strange, and that person, that poor person, also does not know all the tiny little details that we're noticing about them, right?
Yeah,
when
yeah.
they when they say, oh, I feel like having, I don't know, like a turkey sandwich, in our mind it's a mental note of like, okay, likes turkey sandwiches, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah,
This
yeah,
person, oh, he likes to wear polo shirts and not t-shirts. Okay, possibly polo shirt for his birthday. Like, you know,
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
just like, and you have like this memory box of observations about that person.
Hmm.
It's, I mean, not even low key. I was about to say low key. It's not low key. It is very stalky. Like
It's very
seriously,
out
it is.
there. It's very. it's a bit baby reindeer, to be honest, isn't
It is deranged. It is deranged. And I mean,
it?
if someone would tell me that, hey, my friend or girlfriend, boyfriend is doing this with me, I'd be like, yeah, that doesn't sound okay.
No, that's not okay.
Yeah, that sounds really, really creepy. But I mean, yeah, I've been there. I've been that creepy ROCD person. But
Yeah.
I mean, of course, it wasn't coming from like, I'm going to carve his heart out while he's sleeping intention. It was
Yeah, yeah,
obviously,
yeah.
it was more from like in this angle of, I can't lose this person. And if I lose this person, I
Yeah.
feel like my happiness and everything is going to fall apart. And even when you
Hmm.
just imagine that this person will not be there in your life,
Yeah.
it's sudden, it feels like a gut punch. It's
Hmm.
like shit, like what? No.
Yeah.
And when they speak about things like, oh, I'll be moving to another city or another country, or I'm going for my studies or something like that, you have this like thing of like, wait, what? Like they won't be here, and how will we?
Hmm.
I won't meet this person daily. Like how will we? And they will be moving on to new things, and then our connection will start like weakening, and we won't be this and that, like all those sorts. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. It's such an unhealthy view to have that this person bears that much importance in your life. And obviously it's so with relationship OCD, I also had it with like friends and family.
Hmm.
Um, and I mean, I also had it with like childhood friends thinking like, oh, if I'm not friends with them anymore, what will I do? And I had that for years. And it's quite funny because I've actually gone through what I thought would be really, really difficult. My like few childhood friends that I still spoke to, I don't speak to anymore. Like we fell out. Well, we didn't even fall out. It was just kind of a natural drift apart.
Fading away. Yeah.
I stopped contacting them. They stopped contacting me. We didn't like the same things anymore. We just didn't really like when we wanted to meet up. It was like, oh, what do we do? Because you don't like doing this, I don't like doing that. It was just a natural progression thing. And if you had told me that when I was suffering with ROCD with my friends, I would have been like, no, I couldn't let that happen. I would have to like cling on to that relationship. I would have to make sure I text them and make sure they knew that I still wanted to be friends. And whereas because it happened at a time where I wasn't suffering at all with ROCD, I was just like, okay, I'll make new friends. And now I've got like a group of new friends who all want to do the same things that I do and I get on a lot better with. And it just you're like with all our fears, we think that it's the end of the world, and then it happens, and you're like, oh wow, this was actually good. Good outcomes can come from absolutely anything,
It's a very
which
like
is
before and
sorry,
after kind of thing, right? Because I
yeah,
think like a lot of people, that a lot of friends I was obsessing over, and a lot of even like romantic dynamics that I was obsessing over in the same way, many of them are not a part of my life, right,
hmm,
anymore. We
yeah,
don't speak, or even if we speak, it's very like, I don't know, once in 6 months or something like that, right? So very
yeah,
in that way. And it's like, now and then when it really happens, and then you suddenly think, I was obsessing about this. I mean, it's okay, I don't have this person. In fact,
yeah, it's fine.
in some of those, I'm glad I don't like have those people in
Hmm.
my life. Like it's
Yeah,
like, so because also in a couple of them, like it was all like those people were also actually not being nice to me as well. But because I
yeah,
was in my mind so obsessed with them as well,
hmm,
they're complete blinders on, right? So then you're
yeah,
also then completely constantly overly forgiving every single time
hmm,
they're messing up or whatever, and you don't see it, and then when you're out of it, you're like, shit, that's what I let happen to me. What?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
and then it really opens your mind.
It's like it's like a stark contrast, like that you can be so obsessed with that person and as you say just let them do whatever they want, but then if you feel rejected by them you can go completely the other way, and like even if it wasn't rejecting me, it was something that I'd imagined. Like I thought that they'd been a bit off with me, or I thought that, and automatically I would go into shutdown mode and I would be like, I don't want to speak to you. I don't want, but then
Yeah.
if they didn't try with me, I'd be like, oh no, does this mean they're not interested because they're not trying with me? And it was exhausting. It was so tiring. And
I'm
on top of
Yeah.
ROCD, I have BPD as well. I was diagnosed with it when I was about 15. And a lot of the symptoms of that are like being really like obsessional in relationships and things. So I think a bit of a combination of that. Yeah,
Can you
it
also
was
clarify to
difficult.
people if, because some of them might not know what BPD is?
Yeah, so it's a borderline personality disorder. So when I was 15, I was classed as having emergent borderline personality disorder because they didn't diagnose teenagers with it. And
Mm.
this is when I was in hospital, actually. This is what they said that a lot of my issues were down to. And then when I think I was about 24, is when I went and saw a psychiatrist who gave me like the full diagnosis. But it basically just means like you struggle with like really strong emotions. You're unable to like regulate those emotions. You're quite impulsive. So all things that kind of tie in with OCD anyway. So like
Yeah.
the struggles to self-regulate and things like that. I I spent ages when I first got diagnosed with OCD, because that was after the BPD diagnosis, trying to work out like which one was which. Like, oh, am I
Yeah,
experiencing this
yeah.
because I have BPD, or am I experiencing it because I have OCD? And then I realized it doesn't actually matter. Like, I treat them both exactly the same, because the way that they're dealt with, the thing with BPD and OCD is you're experiencing extremely strong emotions, and it is down to the irrational beliefs that you're holding about those things. Because when I thought that the relationship OCD was actually BPD, I I still had to deal with that by not attaching so much to the
Yeah.
relationship and
Yeah.
not having the relationship be the be all and end all. So
I think also
regardless of,
a good
sorry.
video for you to do as well. I think because I think a lot of people have fears around it as well. I think so
Mhm.
maybe a good video to cover as
Yeah, yeah,
well for people.
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. And the the like link between them, I think, doesn't even matter, because as I say, they are definitely dealt with in the same way. And I don't experience either of them, like symptoms of either of them, when it comes to relationships now. And I think that's because by dealing with one of them, it helped the other.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Naturally, I think complements that other thing as well. Yeah.
yeah.
I think, and that's with so many things. Like I think I've had very low tolerance for something like a headache. I've like I was telling someone on on a giving an example of myself on a one-to-one call as well. I was like, I used to get headaches and it used to completely disable me. I could
Mhm.
not fathom just being out with friends and laughing and having fun, because it was just like I can't think of anything else other than my headache. Like it's so
Yeah.
overpowering. So it so even dealing with OCD help with something as random and everyday as headache tolerance in a way as well.
Oh yeah, 100%. Whenever I'm doing this, this sounds like really like motivational here, but when I'm like on like a really hard run or something, and
Mm.
I'm like really wanting to stop, and I'm like, this is just shit at this point, I just don't want to carry on. I'm like, how many times have you thought that with like OCD and things like that? And like carrying on has always worked for you before.
Yeah, yeah,
So I'll give myself like a little pep talk of like, come on, like your frustration tolerance is so like you can deal with so much more like
yeah,
than you give yourself credit for. And that gets me through in like random other things in life. If I'm finding like a
yes,
piece of work particularly frustrating or something, I'll, take a minute, come back to it, rather than just going, oh, I don't want to do it, or trying to give it to someone else or something like that. Because I know that the feeling, I know that the feeling after doing the thing is always worth doing it,
yes.
because I've got, with my OCD, it was so worth going through all of that. With running, it was so worth going through. With this piece of work, it's worth going through it, because the feeling you get at the end for doing it
Yes.
is so good.
Because it's the achievement that makes you feel good, not the process of it all in that way.
Yeah. And the
Um,
harder it is, the more achieved you feel.
yeah, I mean, I think another common example that people can take for that is also uh, completing a university degree or something. Like you
Yeah.
don't think that, oh, I enjoyed all my classes, because let's be honest, we don't enjoy all classes. Even like a bit of
No.
a nerd like me, there were classes where I was like, I am dying. I need to get out of it. But it's the end of it all. When you complete it, when you get
Yeah.
out of it, then you're not thinking about all those terrible classes where you had maybe terrible professors or something like that.
Yeah.
You're just thinking about how you just persevered and you ended up doing that. But Also, then circling back to relationship OCD as well, I think one of the really important things that I really want people to take away from like this talk as well is understanding that you not making your wife, husband, boyfriend, girlfriend, whoever it is, or even if it's like a family member where or another loved one where your relationship OCD is attaching, you not making them the center of your happiness, it's
Mhm.
not you being disloyal or insincere to them, right? Like true love or like a true like devotion does not mean that they have to become the absolute core of your life, because
Mhm.
that can become unhealthy, as you have seen with me and Gemma as well. We became psychopathic with our stalking, right? With our obsession. That's not healthy, right? But that was
Yeah.
also coming from this well-intentioned place of like, oh, I want to really nurture and maintain this relationship and keep this person forever, blah blah blah. But
Mhm.
for an OCD sufferer, that can actually just like go into unhealthy territory very, very quickly. So I mean,
Mhm.
yeah, I think that's one main thing I really want to highlight for people.
Definitely. And I think it's also worth mentioning, because we've said like you can get it with family and friends, but really specifically, something that I experienced, and one that I actually still have to check myself on occasionally now, is the importance I place on my relationship with my daughter. I think with our children, experiencing
Yes,
relationship OCD is extremely common because we do, everyone says like, oh, I would die for my children, or like, I don't know what I would do if something happened to them, or like, a parent should never outlive their children. And all these things, we feel them, yes. But again, it's that emphasis of, well, if my child died, I'd just kill myself. Like, it's that extreme reaction that so many people have. And it's understandable that we have an extreme reaction because our children in general are the people we care about most in the whole world. So experience of relationship OCD with your children is likely, if you're, if that's one of the things that you experience ROCD, the chances are it will go on to your children because they are so important to you. But I do have to check myself sometimes because I'm giving her a hug and I'm thinking about how much I love her, and then I get this like, oh, what if something happens, and I have to kind of wind myself in a little bit and be like,
yeah,
well, obviously that I would really not want that to happen, and I would hate it if anything ever happened to her. But like I can handle anything. Like if I'm given a situation, I have no choice but to deal with it. It's
yes.
literally not my choice. So yeah, I definitely have to wind myself in on that one a little bit, and I think that one can be perhaps harder because your children are
Your flesh and
always there.
blood.
It's not.
They're literally your
Yeah,
flesh and blood. Yeah, and I can
yeah,
completely feel that
exactly.
kind of like absolute titanium kind of bond and love that you feel for them.
Yeah.
And I would say the same on that front as well. Like you, let's say you being a bit negligent of your child, and like I know how that sounds as well. I'm not saying you have to completely like throw them in a corner and just be like, oh, I'm just going out with my friends. Like, I'm not saying that, but like, because for an OCD sufferer as a parent, even like a minute of negligence feels like, oh no, I've done something
Hmm.
wrong, right? So that's what I mean by that.
Yeah.
So like being a little negligent, or like maybe even you giving your child some bad advice, right? Like that does not have to become like, oh my god, kind of thing, right? It does not have
Yeah.
to like really conjure that kind of intense chronic panic or any of those things. So the same what I said before as well, you not making your child the absolute, there will always be a big chunk of your happiness, that I agree
Hmm.
with. But if you're making them like the absolute center and definitional point in that way, and it's like, mm, if is affected in any way, I can't handle that. That's where you really have to change that. And that is not like you being disloyal or insincere. You also have to take care of yourself as well, realistically speaking. And
Yeah.
like your daughter as well, like she is going to be a teenager soon, and like she is also just going to start hating you, absolutely. Right? Like it'll be like, get away from me, I don't want to speak to you, give me my space, like stop hugging me.
That hurts my heart.
Right? So I mean, like when parents also come in, I'm like, if your child is not a teenager right now, just wait for it till they start hating you. Then you have no option but to
Yeah.
face their rejection all the time,
Yeah, yeah,
because that's when they
exactly.
want to disassociate with the parents the most that way. So
Yeah, yeah.
like in that sense, I think, and you have, I think sometimes we also forget that even we have mixed feelings about our parents, right?
Hmm.
So we can see that there are things that, I mean, we love our parents to bits, but then there are times when we absolutely hate them when they're doing that same nagging behavior kind of thing over and over again. We don't like them, right? And all of us, I think, have some one or two issues at the very least with our parents,
Yeah,
right? And we forget that. We forget that our child can also feel the same way about us. They can have
yeah.
feelings. And getting
See,
comfortable with that.
my brain went then, oh, I'd like to ask her what those feelings are. And then I was like, no, absolutely not. That's not what
Absolutely
we
not.
do.
Yeah, yeah. Right. So I
Urge
mean,
comes in, we ignore those urges.
she'll probably, when she goes to therapy one day and she uncovers all of this, she'll come home and be like, I don't like this about you. This is
It
what you
was
did when
all
I was,
your fault.
it's all your fault. This is when I was 9 years old, you said this to me and I never was able to overcome that. So I mean, like,
Yeah,
so those, like, getting comfortable with your children having mixed opinions about you. And I feel like that, especially for blood relationships, that is a default. That is an absolute
yeah.
default. Mixed feelings are a default in blood relationships. Like, you have to get comfortable with that.
She has actually mentioned a few times now the story of the worst thing that's ever happened to her.
Mm,
And it was me. It was something I did. So,
of course.
in fact, you guys have heard this story probably many times. So, when I was suffering really badly with health anxiety, health OCD, I had that episode. If you watch back on videos, you'll get a very in-depth
I think you
explanation of
talked
it.
about
But
it
where,
on one of the real talks where you talked about your journey.
yeah, I've
Yeah.
spoken about it a few times, I think, like just referred to it at least. But when I was in the car park of the shopping centre and I was laying on the floor and I thought I was having a brain aneurysm and a heart attack at the same time, my daughter was in the car with me at the time. Like that's how real it felt because I'm usually very much I'll cover things up in front of her. I don't want her to know anything because I try and protect her from it. But it felt so real that there was no pretending that it wasn't happening because it felt so real. I thought it was happening.
Hmm.
Um, and I was on the phone to her, on the phone to an ambulance, and she was absolutely inconsolable, crying her eyes out. She was only was she 10 at the time?
Hmm.
So old enough, unfortunately, to know exactly what was happening, but still very young to be dealing with that situation. Um, and I dealt with a lot of guilt over that after it first happened because she was always so worried. Like she would look at me funny all the time. Like when I was driving and things, I'd see her like staring at me and like constantly like checking on me and saying, and you
Hmm.
know, if I looked a bit like, oh, she'd be like, "Is your head okay?" And she was really worried. I definitely gave her like a bit of an anxiety over it. Um, so yeah, you will do things and that your children remember and that they you know remember that you did something, but you don't have to hold on to that guilt because you can kind of look at it in a rational sense of you're just doing the best with what you have at the time and you won't always get it right and that's absolutely fine. And if they do hate you, just have another one or something. I don't know. Try again, it's fine.
Absolutely. I think that no, that's really spot on, and it's also just reminding me of all the things that I've really disliked about my parents over the years.
Yeah.
I also like remember a couple of times just like sitting them down and just giving it to them straight, like just being like, and they weren't expecting it,
I
like.
would have loved to hear that. You just
Like
setting your parents straight.
basically, and I mean, and they weren't expecting because I'm generally someone who remains quiet. I don't like, in that sense, say a lot. I don't share a lot of my opinions and things like that. And then suddenly out the gate, it's just like, what? But I mean, this is like, I don't know, many years ago at this point, but it felt so necessary at the time as well to do that.
Yeah.
Um, but I think they, after that, they did feel really guilty. Um,
Mm.
for some time after that, because I could see it in them, and I could see it in some of the things that they, said to me as well. I could see that they were carrying that guilt. But I think like it's also then over time, just from a child perspective as well, like it's also then how I behaved towards them, and how
Mhm.
I, just was with them, that I didn't have to sit them down and be like, okay, hey, I forgive you for, like, I didn't have to give that speech either, right?
Yeah.
Over the years and over time, it just becomes kind of like understood, right? Because I'm not
Mhm.
moody with them, I'm not distant with them. I help them
Yeah.
out with whatever they need. Like, whenever I'm traveling, I'm always like, "Do you need anything? Let me know. Like, don't worry about money, this and that. Like all that
Mhm.
kind of stuff." So, and I think it's those little things that combine, and I mean, and I don't think they feel guilty anymore now. They don't. I don't think they
Yeah.
feel like I'm holding it over their head or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
it's important to remember as well that like just because you have OCD, it doesn't mean you're people with OCD are the only people feeling this. Like parental guilt and things and child guilt is very real upon just everyone. Like I speak to plenty of like
Yes.
not so much anymore school mums because my daughter's in secondary school and I don't have to take her anymore or anything. But like when you're in the playground, when you've got smaller children and things, all you hear are mum saying, "Oh, this oh, I felt so bad because of this, and I felt so bad because of that." And that's not because every mum there has OCD. It's because we do have such an attachment to our children that naturally we will feel like a bit guilty about things. And
Yes.
I'm not suffering with it, but I'm still going to feel a little bit guilty about
Yes.
certain things. When she poured that boiling water over her leg the other week and she had this massive second-degree burn,
Yeah.
I felt guilty because I'd asked her to
Of
make me a
course.
cup
Yeah.
of tea. I'd come back from a run and I said, "Oh, do you mind just making me a cup of tea quickly?" And that's when it happened. So immediately I was like, "Oh, if I hadn't
If,
asked her, that wouldn't have happened."
yeah.
But I didn't dwell on it, and I'm not still thinking about it weeks later and going, "Oh, I'm a terrible person," or anything like that. Because if you look at it in an irrational way, you can still feel those like normal human emotions without it becoming a really unhealthy negative reaction.
And look, my mom is in her 60s right now, right? She'll be 65 next month, I believe, right? Um, like all her kids are in their 30s right now, right?
Mm.
She still feels guilty when, like, if someone wants, I don't know, a cold coffee or something, and she is not able to make it,
Mhm.
right? Because she makes excellent cold coffee, by the way. But like, if someone says that, oh, like, please make cold coffee one of these days, it's been a while, and she's unable to make it, she'll just like completely feel like she has failed us sometimes, So
Oh,
she's like a mom, like a proper mom,
yeah,
right? So
yeah,
I mean, in her 60s as well, and we're always like, why are you doing this to yourself? Like, stop doing this to you. And I think I mean, in some ways I can also see the kind of like the chronic guilt tendency that
yeah,
I've
yeah,
received from her as well. There's a little bit of that, but yeah, she's ultimately a mom, and I think that comes as part of being a parent. Some guilt
it
will
does.
always kind of like be there, but
Yeah.
also then accepting that as part of the parent-child machine,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Having the guilt is fine, but just accepting it that it's there is really important rather than being like, "Oh, I shouldn't be feeling like this," or feeling an unnatural amount of guilt, extreme guilt over something like if
Yeah,
your mum was feeling extreme guilt over not being able to make you cold coffee, then it would be like, well, you need to maybe have a little look at this because
yeah,
it,
yeah,
yeah, it's completely normal as a mum to feel guilty when you're not giving your child something they want. If they ask for something really expensive and you can't afford it, you're going to feel a little bit guilty, even if it is like an
yeah,
unreasonable request, even if
yeah.
it is a lot of money for something, you're still going to feel a little bit guilty. But it's about whether you're feeling a little bit guilty and moving on, or you're staying up at night and you're thinking about it for weeks. Like that's when you
Yeah,
really
yeah,
need to look at
yeah.
that because
Sometimes
that's not.
I mean, well, to be frank, sometimes my mom will be like, fuck off, like, I don't want to do it. Stop. She will, I mean, she won't say fuck off, but like in the equivalent of our language, she will be like, yeah, get the fuck away from me.
Yeah,
Right now.
yeah,
So
yeah.
we'd be like, okay, fair enough. I mean, sure. Um, But I think, I mean, again, I think we should end here as well. But like with relationship OCD, again, there's so many different things to it, and I think even still, there's so much that we could talk about. Maybe if we
Mhm.
do like a collective real talk again with the others, I think this is something we could go over once more and like seeing how
Yeah,
everyone kind of
definitely.
experienced it in their own way.
Mhm.
But yeah, great talk. I really love this conversation. I think we covered quite a lot of ground over here.
Yeah, definitely. Got
All
some
right.
good points in there, I think.
Yeah, guys, if you have any questions, if you've made it this far, if you if you have any questions, if you have any recommendations of even with relationship OCT that you'd like us to cover, let us know, and we'd be happy to do that. Gemma, I'll see you around.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.